We are also not doing tutus, crinolines, ruffs, muffs, umbrella hats, clown noses, whatever this is, or any variation on milady-ass looking hats. No, we are focusing on very unnatural, insane spheres and circles, the kind that shouldn't belong on clothes but exist nonetheless. In the Jacquemus Fall 2023 show, La Chouchou, these huge poofy balls are undermining the line by showcasing the extravagant and impractical nature of French court dressing for a modern audience. The design also seems to be just sort of screaming out that only a few people in the world can pull this off and still make it look luxurious and fantastic. Gigi Hadid being one of those people. Just making sure the algorithm heard that. Gigi Hadid. Can we just mix them up permanently?
Sure.
That's very funny. And more than that, Simone Porte-Jacquemus loves circles. He found another excuse to use them in spring 2016 when he was trying to kind of emulate Rei Kawakubo a little bit more. The attempt to make fashion spherical or circular is very attention-grabbing because models usually are very tall and they are thin, which is more like a line, right? Like even fashion designers, when they're talking about their process, they often use the term the line to refer to the silhouette. Other times, it's like lightning around today. We're moving so fast. Other times, the circle can be found in the pattern of the garment itself. Maison Martin Margiela used circular pieces as part of an ongoing project to create completely flat garments. See, for most garments, trying to lay them flat is usually impossible, even for really simple stuff like some t-shirts. With the way that clothing patterns work, it's always going to be bunched up a little bit when you try to lay it onto the ground because the garment is not meant to lay flat on the ground, it's meant to fit over a three-dimensional body. Margiela and his team wanted to challenge themselves to make entirely flat clothes that would lay entirely flat when placed on the ground. So the Maison put restraints on themselves in order to try to find something new. And in spring 1998, what's called the Flat Collection, they managed to create some just fascinating results that ended up inspiring a whole ongoing theme in the work of the Maison. But in some of these pieces, this is so sick, they not only said, let's make it where it can lay flat, let's also make it where when it's laying flat on the ground, it also creates a circle. Even the button-up shirts that like, you look at them and you're like, there's no way this is going to just like look natural and easy in someone's wardrobe. And then it does. It really is not, it's not crazy at all. The reason we're using this as a case study is because saying something like, I want to do circles and spheres does not have to just mean that you like stamp a huge circle like out of plywood on the front of the model before they walk out on the runway. It can be something that you involve into the process of creating the final look. And then in the end, you might not see a perfect circle, but a perfect circle was built into the thing. This concept went on to inspire the bullseye tops and skirts from spring 2007 that are all patterned from large fabric circles. But I mean, large runway circles can be otherworldly too. Schiaparelli uses circular and bulbous silhouettes to evoke these kind of surreal clouds and to break the silhouette out of its mundane straightness. In other shows, their creative director, Daniel Roseberry, uses circles to evoke planets like Jupiter's rings and the circular orbit paths that the planets make in the galaxy. Okay, but those are really, it's more in the realm of like accessories and little details on the looks and stuff. I want a big ass circle, like a huge circle. Well, in Thom Browne Fall 22, we get this. It is a playful, zany take on a bodice, but also it's a tennis ball or a toy of some kind. It also highlights the childlike elements of this Island of Misfit Toys themed collection. And in that childlike vein, it highlights the exceptional work that comes out of a beginner's mind, the way that Tom executes these ideas better than really anyone else that I can think of. Thom Browne even sketches using these geometric shapes that his atelier somehow is able to understand and interpret. But this is how most of the looks of Thom Browne shows start out. Now, my favorite thing about looking at the insane, just bonkers work of Tom is that even when it gets really crazy, there is always an insane amount of craftsmanship that goes into it. Like, there is no cardboard under that outfit. It's some type of, fucking unseen sphere of artisanal excellence. In a substantially more niche but still awesome example, Frederick Tijerison has these massive balloon shapes that are about moments of clarity and big instances of self-awareness or reflection. Not like the aha moment of understanding a concept, it's the aha moment that causes someone to just shift the course of their whole life. As the balloons deflate, so does one's previous idea of themselves. In a way, it's about renewal, right? That's just my take on it. It could absolutely be about something that I don't understand, but speaking of things that I don't understand, for Grandma Rei Kawakubo, use of the circle or the sphere is part of her lifelong hell-bent mission of trying to create something that has truly never been seen before, something that is, by the strictest definition of the word, unique in fashion. A large part of that is also in the shape. And for Rei, it's not just, the body as a sphere. At times, it's separating body segments into different, simple geometric shapes and combining them with never-before-seen skirt and shoulder shapes. Though, of course, this is Comme des Garçons, so sphere does become the whole body under certain circumstances. And then you get to highlight texture, material selection, and a very distinctive use of graphics. In this look from fall 2015, the circle is really like a semi-permeable membrane. The lace center and the black edges evoke a Victorian porthole. But one of the main things about Rei's work is that we're only ever given a cryptic one-word summary for these collections. I think it's safe to say that bulbous forms are a simple way to create Rei's ultimate goal of newness, in that it's novel to see a round silhouette while leaving so much room for newness in the context of that sphere, or maybe the void. In fact, actually, one time when she was in an interview, Rei was asked about the meaning of her collection, and she took out a blank piece of paper and drew a circle on it, slid it across the table, got up, and left the interview. Man, you cannot act that way if you're not a genius. Other interesting things is that in this very, very old show by Comme, she referred to this knit that's just filled with what looks like moth holes. She referred to that as her own version of lace. She has a super interesting relationship with circles. We could probably just have the whole episode be about Comme and circles, but we're not going to do that. In Valentino's fall 2021 couture, Pierpaolo was examining shape closely, so it's no surprise that we're starting this show with a rounded look. What's cool about this is that while it looks like a completely rounded look, you can see that the roundness is actually in what looks like a jacket, and there's a super tight skirt underneath. Throwback a little bit, and we don't have any footage of it, but Pierre Cardin was obsessed with futurism and created this almost deconstructed, deflated balloon type shape.
That's totally Target.
Pierre Cardin was super obsessed with circles and just rounded things, like the completely round house that he built in Nice, which is still to date one of the coolest houses that I've ever seen in my entire life. This is all just made of a waterproof rain gear type material that was really popular at that time, especially among designers who were sort of trying to pitch a vision of the future to everyone. Formerly Paco, now just Rabanne's Spring 2012 show explores what circles would look like in clothing if placed on the Z-axis, or like flopped over, kind of. It's like capturing a moment in time of a spinning disc, and each look is this like different paused moment to slice up the body. Like, you know how like when discs hit the floor and they're already spinning really hard and they kind of like warp over and stuff? It's sort of like that. I really like these a lot. These are cool. But if a circle represents a fashion moment in time, Chanel's rounded hula hoop bag, famously from their spring 2013 show, that is the one that I think of first. I actually remember, before I got into fashion, in 2013, I remember seeing, 2012, I guess it would have been October of 2012. It was around Thanksgiving. I remember seeing this on like the news, on like the E! Channel or something on TV, and being like, that is so stupid. Adorable. I didn't understand yet. I was just a baby. Just a 22-year-old baby.
Circles are with us every moment of our waking lives. Even when we lay down our heads at night for slumber, we dream of circles. What does the circle want? Where is it going?
This is just a short break in the video for us to discuss briefly the issue of the Patreon. My artisanal Patreon is undeniably, my artisanal Patreon is undeniably.
That is my very inconsistent and barely accurate impression of John Galliano. You know how like when you're doing an impression of someone and you're trying to like get back into it and it's like, oh, I'm not getting the impression right. There's like a single word for most people that you can say and then you're just like, oh, I've got it now. For John Galliano, that word is
artisanal.
In which John attempts to say artisanal, but he says art is anal. Join the Patreon. There's a group of exclusive videos that we're doing right now where I go through every article of clothing in my wardrobe. Like one whole episode is just about t-shirts. That's 45 minutes long. There are the part 1 and part 2 for button-up shirts because I have 14 of them, so it takes a super long time to like talk about all the nuance and details and patterning things and like everything. I'm doing like a massive wardrobe tour right now on the Patreon, and it's really, really fun. Episode 3 is releasing in a couple of days here. Lightning round. Junya Watanabe, the GOAT's Spring 2015 collection, features the layering of different circles to create various types of garments, using circles of different opacities and colors all layered to create an effect that looks borrowed from like a cubist painting. Cubism, but with spheres. Spherism, they call it, actually. Spherism. In Duarkai Ninamiya's most recent show, more organic shapes of like the blob appear. In the first look, the movement evokes kind of waves. The reflective light moves in a circular way too. The last look is an organic circular-ish blob with tentacles, which is sort of circular. I don't know. Look, it's my video. I don't need any feedback from anybody about what a sphere is and what a sphere isn't. Okay, let's just move on.
Hello.
There is always a fabulous exception if we bring in Walter Van Beirendonk, and here we're bringing him in. The most notable example I can think of is his Spring 2012 show, heavily inspired by studio artist Erwin Worm. He was the guy that did the fat car thing. Walter created pieces that I believe are supposed to be kind of a play on the unspoken rule that designers at some point in their career have to create a big pile of tulle as a dress. Vogue's review of this show rightly observed that it manages to be simultaneously playful and menacing. And that might actually give us some pretty good insight into the use of circles and spheres overall in this episode. Circles and spheres are by their nature shaped like circles and spheres. So, I mean, like if we're talking about them as circles and spheres, they're not as clothing shaped like Rebecca, they are shaped like circles and spheres. The more the shape of the garment insists itself on someone's body, the less like a human the model appears to be. And there's some kind of uncanny valley part of our brains that gets anxious when something is the size of a human, has traits of a human like legs, and might even have some of the mannerisms of a human in the way it walks, but it isn't all the way human or doesn't appear to be. It's like seeing a person wearing a full face covering when it's like not Halloween. It's just sort of like something feels wrong here. It's unsettling, and I am always in favor of more unsettling things in fashion. There's too many things that are pretty. Let's make things unsettling. Totally different approach. Helmut Lang popularized this detail called the peekaboo that is just essentially a little hole cut out of a top somewhere, usually letting the nipples show through. So I can only show it to you on a guy because I'd get demonetized otherwise. Those circular cutouts were a little playful motif that enforced Helmut's wider theme of sexy clothes for modern urbanites. That idea later evolved into lots of different tops where it's like, they're technically wearing a top, but, not really. That was meant to be a top. This philosophy was taken to some pretty extreme places. Craig Green picked up this similar idea of the peekaboo and then made it look much more industrial, as is common with a lot of Craig Green stuff. Like, no, this is not a circular hole that's here so you can see that person's skin. It is an opening for exhaust or a stoma or something, but you could probably see a little bit of skin if you were really looking to. Later on, Rick took this idea to a completely different place. Again, they're all just like little holes in the outfits, and yet so many things to do with them. Rick turned them into the banana sweater. I don't know how many knitwear obsessives we have in the audience today, but knitting perfect circles is extremely hard to do, even on an industrial level. Like the circular knit in every banana sweater that is out there in the world, all of those circles are different, and not just like technically different, they're obviously different. When you do side-by-side comparisons to them, circular knits just have this kind of organic imperfection to them. And each one of you is perfectly imperfect in just such a way.